Chapter 1204. Just as Jingyu was engrossed in watching, she suddenly felt a chill run down her back. Ah, what beautiful eyes! Before Jingyu could react, she heard a faint voice that sounded like praise. Then, a person appeared in front of Jingyu. A person who looked wow, so cute. Jingyu looked at the person in front of her. It was as if he had been carved out of the same mold as Fengyu. Jingyu sighed in admiration. How could there be such a cute man in this world? What did you say? When the man heard Jingyu's exclamation, the smile on his face froze. He looked coldly at Jingyu. Take your dirty hands away. A cold voice sounded. A cold light flashed in front of Jingyu. Jingyu blinked and saw the man in front of her retreat far away. Brother Fengling. Oh. The moment Fengyu was released by Xiao Chun, she pounced on the man who appeared. Don't pounce on me. So the super cute man who appeared just now was Fengyu's brother. Fengling? Seeing Fengling push Fengyu's head away with a look of disdain, preventing Fengyu from coming closer, Fengyu felt strangely amused. Xiao Chun stood with his hands behind his back. He frowned at the siblings and said in disdain, Have you had enough? Che, the Netherworld King is really heartless. Fengling slowly stopped her hand and looked at Xiao Chun. Her lips curled into a smile. It was obviously a very evil smile, but when it was displayed by Fengling's baby face, Xiao Chun's expression changed. So cute. Jingyu's saliva was about to drip out. Looking at Fengling's face, she had an inexplicable urge to grab and pinch it. Fengyu is running amok, and you're actually allowing her to do as she pleases. Could it be that you want to interfere in the battle? Xiao Chun completely ignored Fengling's words. His pitch-black eyes narrowed as he looked at Fengling. Ayaya. Is this your wife? Fengling ignored Xiao Chun's words and turned her gaze to Jingyu. Uncle actually got married? Fengyu's eyes were filled with curiosity as she looked at Jingyu. She seemed to be carefully sizing up Jingyu at this moment. She slowly frowned. Jingyu felt her hair stand on end from the way these two people were looking at her. What a pity. She actually married such a perverted uncle. How great would it be if she were to marry my big brother Fengling? Fengyu said very seriously. Xiao Chen's face suddenly darkened. Ayaya, little sister Xiao Yu's words are so nice. After Fengling heard this, his eyes curved into crescents as he reached out to rub Fengyu's head. The way he looked at Jingyu instantly changed. What was that look? It was as if he was looking at his wife. Fengling, I think you don't want your eyes anymore, do you? Xiao Chen's extremely cold voice rang out. You're really protective. When Fengling saw the murderous look in Xiao Chen's eyes, she frowned unhappily and said, No wonder you're willing to give up your position as 9th Imperial Uncle and the Nether Sect for this woman. It's none of your business. Xiao Chun indifferently turned his head away. It's your stubborn temper. If it weren't for me taking care of the Nether Sect, do you think you'd still be able to see the Nether Sect? It would have been destroyed long ago. Fengling angrily glared at Xiao Chun as he opened the door and rebuked him. Xiao Chun calmly turned his head away again. Chapter 1205. I didn't ask you to interfere, Jingyu said. She could almost see Fengling spitting out blood. It's none of your business that I'm here. Can I play here? Fengling crossed her arms and looked at Xiao Chun unhappily. It seems that the Darkeen sect is also very leisurely. Xiao Chun pretended not to hear Fengling's words. He turned around and took Jingyu's hand. Let's go. Let them play here. Stop. Fengyu saw Xiao Chun take Jingyu away and immediately jumped out. She said fiercely, Tell me first, where did you hide my husband? Little sister, Bai Jiao is not your husband. Jingyu tilted her head and looked at Fengyu. Her eyes curved slightly as she revealed a faint smile. You really hit him. Hurry up and bring my husband out, Fengyu said anxiously. Her eyes lit up when she heard Jingyu's words. Don't you understand what I'm saying? Jingyu turned around. Her eyes flickered with coldness as she said, Bai Jiao is already married. Don't you think it's wrong for you to pester endlessly? Married. As long as I kill my husband's wife, everything will be fine, Fengyu said nonchalantly with a shrug. Ha! Jingyu's eyes turned cold. She looked at Fengyu and frowned. I won't tell you where Baijio is. Also, if you're still wandering around in this forest, don't blame me for being rude. How arrogant. I'd like to see how rude you are. As Fengyu spoke, the long whip in her hand suddenly lashed out at Jingyu. Jingyu leaped away with the tip of her foot. She looked at the long whip mark with a cold gaze. This little girl was really ruthless. Silver arrow! Jingyu shouted when she saw the whip lashing at her again. Roar! Yin Jian's figure suddenly leaped up. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Yin Jian bit down on the long whip. A pair of ferocious eyes looked towards Fengyu. The fangs he bared were even more shocking. Fengyu was also frightened by Jingyu's appearance. She suddenly threw the whip in her hand and looked at Jingyu with a frightened expression. Yin opened his mouth and let go of the whip. He strode over to Jingyu's side. Jingyu reached out and touched Yinyu's head. You dare to be so arrogant in my territory? Jingyu's lips were filled with disdain. Her golden green eyes flashed with an icy light. She turned away expressionlessly and walked out of the forest. Remember my warning. I don't mind turning all of you into food for the beasts. As Jingyu's voice drifted over, Xiaoqun turned around as well. As he turned around, he looked at Jingyu with a strange look in his eyes. Xiaoqun and the rest left just like that. Fengyu bit her lip and looked up at Feng Ling with teary eyes. She called out, Big brother Feng Ling, is this the power of the abnormal pupils? Feng Ling didn't seem to hear Fengyu's call. His eyes flashed with a dark light as he said, Looks like the rumors can't be trusted. They said that the 9th imperial concubine lost her sight and her abnormal pupils. Huh, Big brother Feng Ling? Fengyu shouted angrily when she saw that Feng Ling was ignoring her. Chapter 1206. Feng Ling lowered her head and looked at Fengyu. She narrowed her eyes and said, You've caused such a big mess. What else do you want from me? You used my name to stir up chaos in the Darkeen sect. Do you still want me to praise you? I was wrong. Fengyu looked at Feng Ling's expression and silently retracted her hand. She lowered her head and didn't dare to speak. As for that Baijio, what's his background? Feng Ling frowned slightly and looked at Fengyu. When Fengyu heard Feng Ling's question, she twisted the corner of her clothes and didn't dare to say anything. After Feng Ling's repeated questioning, she finally understood the cause and effect. She rubbed her head and frowned. Take the people of the Darkeen sect and leave. Feng Ling turned and walked out of the forest. She said, Retreat from the forest. But I haven't found my husband yet. Fengyu immediately became unhappy and said with her eyes wide open, You still dare to mention it? Feng Ling glared at Fengyu and said, Do you know who you've offended? That's the 9th emperors and the imperial concubine with different pupils. Do you know about different pupils? We're not enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of the beasts in the Roman forest. Fengyu blinked. I thought that the strange pupil disappeared, but it turns out that it didn't. That was close. Feng Ling muttered to herself as she led her people away. Even though Fengyu was filled with unwillingness, she couldn't say anything. She silently followed behind Feng Ling, her face full of resentment. When Jingyu and Xiaoqun returned, they thought about what they had experienced today. It was too dramatic. However, Jingyu had almost forgotten that Xiaoqun was the sect master of the Nether sect. However, after hearing Feng Ling's words, she realized that Xiaoqun was the sect master of Nether sect. However, after hearing Feng Ling's words, Xiaoqun seemed to be on good terms with Feng Ling. Xiaoqun, how did you meet Feng Ling? Jingyu asked curiously. I don't know. While walking, Xiaoqun recalled and said, This guy is a person who wants to see the world in chaos. Very annoying. Xiaoqun seemed to be very disgusted. After spitting out these words, he sighed deeply. At that time, in order to get rid of young Master Feng, Master used countless methods, but in the end, she still couldn't get rid of him. Xing Er's eyes were also tinged with a faint smile as he said, This is probably the most troublesome person for Master. Xiaoqun seemed to recall a very bad memory, and the corners of his mouth twitched violently. Jingyu curiously dug out a mysterious past from Xing Er. Xiaoqun had always hated trouble, and Feng Ling was a troublemaker. Even though it was an evil sect that was hated by many martial artists, Feng Ling always liked to poke her nose into other people's business. No matter which sect was fighting or which young lady was getting married, Feng Ling always liked to join in the fun. When Xiao Chun was in the Nether sect, the number of times he got into fights was all because of Feng Ling. Feng Ling's greatest joy was to pester Xiao Chun. In order to get rid of Feng Ling, Xiao Chun used countless methods, but to no avail. In the end, he even exposed his identity as the Ninth Emperor's. With this information on him, Xiao Chun's days were extremely miserable. Fortunately, Xiao Chun also had something on Feng Ling. That was how the two of them came to an agreement and lived peacefully for so long. After arriving at Upper Freeze, Jingyu heard all of this mysterious past from Xing'er. So, this was how the Nether sect got its name. Chapter 1207. Inside the cave, Jingyu told Bai Jiao and Wei Ling everything that had happened today. When they learned that Xiao Chun was related to the Hades sect, Wei Ling's expression was very interesting. I remember that someone once hired assassins from the Hades sect to assassinate me. Xiao Chun narrowed his eyes calmly. His lips curled into a faint smile as he looked at Wei Ling. He actually revealed a very happy smile and said, "Don't you think so, Crown Prince Wei?" Wei Ling's eyes twitched when he heard that. He must have been out of his mind back then. If nothing unexpected happens, the people of the Dark Een sect will withdraw. Jingyu glanced at Wei Ling and Xiao Chun. She didn't want to talk to them. She frowned slightly and said, "The Dark Een sect is not a big problem. But what about Wei Yin?" Jingyu turned to Wei Ling and asked, "What's your plan? Do you want to go back? Or what?" Jingyu frowned and looked at Wei Yi. "It's not the time to go back. I have a backup plan." Wei Ling shook his head slowly and said, "But we still need to hide in this forest for a few days." "You mean you want us to stay here and take care of you?" Jingyu was in a dilemma. She crossed her arms and stared at Wei Ling and said, "I really regret it. Why did I save you like a lunatic?" Wei Ling lowered his head and didn't say anything. Obviously, it was not the right time to say anything. In the following period of time, Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others completely settled down in the Roman forest. When Jingyu and Xiao Chun had nothing to do, they would go out of the forest and provoke the death warriors of Wei San, killing them indiscriminately. They either went to some scenic spots in the depths of the forest, or went to pick some unknown wild fruits. Interrogation Officer 1 and Interrogation Officer 2, on the other hand, ran between the forest and Jinling. They did not feel out of place at all. She didn't know why, but the days in the Roman forest were especially happy. It made Jingyu feel like she was on vacation. From time to time, she would climb some towering ancient trees or ride a giant eagle to play around. During this period of time, Wei Ling's injuries were getting better day by day. White Nine could finally move around freely. They were all in pairs. This was the first time Wei Ling felt such pressure. He frowned unhappily and sighed deeply. Sibu had a lot of wives and concubines, but none of them were sincere to him. None of them were like Jingyu and Yi Shui. None of them. Just as everyone was having fun in the forest, Second Interrogation Officer came back from Jinling with a piece of explosive news, which broke the peace and tranquility. "What did you say?" Jingyu stared at Xing'er with shock in her eyes and said, "Sibu, Tokyo, and Nanli have formed an alliance." This news shocked everyone present. "Yes." Xing'er nodded solemnly and said, "Tomorrow is the first battle of the three countries." Hiss! Jingyu sucked in a breath of cold air, and the expression on her face instantly became extremely solemn. Wayne is too impatient. After a brief moment of shock, Wei Ling's hands slowly clenched into fists. The expression on his face kept changing. Under everyone's gaze, Wei Ling gritted his teeth and said, "I can't wait any longer. I have to go back." Chapter 1208. There's a second piece of news. After Wei Ling finished speaking, Xing'er lowered his head and continued, "Crown Prince Wei Ling died in an accident." After Jingyu heard this, she looked at Wei Ling with a dumbfounded expression. She asked hesitantly, "Could it be that you are not a human, but a ghost?" Wei Ling's originally serious expression disappeared after hearing Jing Yu's words. Everyone's mouths twitched as they looked at Jing Yu. They couldn't keep up with Jing Yu's train of thought. I knew Wei would be like this, but I didn't expect him to be so impatient. Wei Ling let out a sigh of relief and said, "This news isn't bad news for me." And then, Wei Ling slowly stood up and looked at Xiao Chun and Jing Yu. He said, "Thank you, 9th Imperial Concubine, for saving my life. After I go back, Cebu will withdraw from the fight for the other pupils. However, in half a year, I will return. This time, Xiao Chun, I want to fight for the world with you. No matter the result, I hope you can accept my challenge." Wei Ling looked deeply at Xiao Chun and said, "Ha." Xiao Chun smiled indifferently. He narrowed his eyes at Wei Ling and said, "After fighting for so many years, you're still like this." Xiao Chun's eyes drooped slightly. When he raised them again, his pitch-black eyes were filled with disdain as he looked at Wei Ling. His pitch-black eyes flickered with a fervent light as he said, "Good. I accept your challenge. I also want to see who is the true winner of the Four Kingdoms. It's a deal." Of course. At this moment, Jing Yu seemed to understand these two men. The burning battle intent between Wei Ling and Xiao Chun made Jing Yu's blood boil. As expected, Wei Ling left. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun couldn't stay either. They brought Bai Jiao and Yi Shui back to Jinling. However, on the way back to Jinling, "Ah, I finally caught you, husband." Jing Yu's face was dark as she looked at Feng Yu, who was dashing over. Without thinking, she reached out to stop Feng Yu from charging towards Bai Jiao. "I'll let go." Feng Yu stared at Jing Yu with a pair of round eyes. "Little lowly, didn't I tell you that Bai Jiao has a wife?" Jing Yu pulled Feng Yu away. When she saw Feng Yu's arrogant head, she could guess what Feng Yu was going to say. Before she could open her mouth, Jing Yu said, "If you dare to talk about killing people again, I'll let these two wolves eat you." "I didn't say anything." Feng Yu saw the two large gray wolves behind Jing Yu, and her face instantly paled. She quickly retreated and swallowed her saliva. She looked at Jing Yu with eyes full of fear. When Jing Yu saw Feng Yu's reaction, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Sure enough, this was how a child should behave. "Nether King, you should really take care of your wife. Look at how scared she is." Feng Ling's words rang out. She glanced at Jing Yu with hidden bitterness. She raised her hand and pulled Feng Yu behind her to protect her. "This king's people don't need you to tell them what to do," Xiao Chun said as he looked at Feng Ling indifferently. Feng Ling's mouth twitched. Chapter 1209. Forget your friends when you have a wife. Feng Ling crossed her arms and squinted her eyes. She looked past Jing Yu and Xiao Chun to Bai Jiao and Yi Shui behind her and said, "That gigolo is the man who seduced my little sister." Hey. How did it become seducing your little sister? It's clearly your sister who's pestering him." Jing Yu immediately began to shout angrily as soon as she heard this. Feng Ling touched the tip of her nose and said, "It's all the same anyway. That man has been poisoned with goo. If he doesn't get detoxified, he probably won't live past 2 months. "What?" Jing Yu's eyes widened when she heard this. She looked at Feng Ling in shock. Then, she turned to look at Feng Yu and said, "Could it be that this little lowly poisoned him with the goo? And didn't Xiao Chun tell you about Xiao Yu's identity?" Feng Ling saw Jing Yu's shocked expression and blinked at Xiao Chun. "I forgot." Xiao Chun seemed to have just remembered that he forgot to mention Feng Yu's background. "We're from Yaojia." Feng Ling grinned and said, "Raising goo is our specialty." The image of Feng Ling holding a white caterpillar-like bug appeared in Jing Yu's mind. She felt nauseous and silently leaned toward Xiao Chun. As if she didn't want to talk to Feng Ling, Xiao Yu's goo shouldn't have taken his life, Feng Ling said as she looked at Bai Jiao. Feng Ling crossed her arms as she looked at Bai Jiao and said, "But he actually broke through the goo's restraints and forced the goo out. That's why he left behind this problem." "What do you mean?" Jing Yu blinked in confusion and looked at Feng Ling with a frown. Her eyes were filled with confusion. "Ask him." Feng Ling spread her hands and looked at Bai Jiao. White Nine stood beside Yi Shui. He was dressed in white and had not changed his clothes. That huge, strange cloak covered his head. It looked strange at first, but Jingyu seemed to notice something was wrong after looking at it for a long time. It seemed that ever since the first time they met, White Nine had never taken off the hat on her head. Her white clothes were very strange. Yes. White Nine slowly lowered his head and said, "There are repercussions." As Bai Jiu spoke, under everyone's strange gazes, he finally raised his hand and took off the hat on his head. The moment the cloth fell, Jingyu and the rest widened their eyes in shock. Under the white cloth was a head of snow-white hair. The white hair was very dazzling, and there were a few strands of black hair mixed in. Jingyu finally understood why White Nine was unwilling to take off the white cloth no matter what Yishue said. He looked like he was in his 20s, but he had a head of white hair. This shock flashed across Yishue's eyes. Then she frowned deeply. Her face was filled with heartache. Back then, after I forced the goo out, I suffered a backlash. My hair turned white overnight, and I went everywhere to seek treatment. White Nine clenched the white cloth in his hand tightly and said, with such a face, "How can I see Shui? I can only hide." In just a short sentence, he expressed a lot of heartache. Yishue finally understood why White Nine had come to see her. Her heart trembled, and she slowly lowered her eyes. She raised her hand to hold White Nine's hand and said, "How can you be so stupid? If your life wasn't hanging by a thread this time, were you planning to die without seeing me?" Chapter 12:10. Shui. Bai Jiu gazed deeply at Yishue. At that time, he had been hiding in the dark, watching Yishue call his name over and over again. But no matter what, he couldn't go out to see her. He could only hide in the dark and watch Yishue quietly. He watched the woman who was desperately searching for him, regardless of anything. The person he loved deeply. This time, I'm here to give him the antidote. Feng Ling raised her hand and took out a green bottle. She extended her hand to Jingyu and said, "This is the antidote. It's up to you whether you dare to give it to him or not." "Thank you." Jingyu looked at the antidote. She pursed her lips slightly and bowed her head to thank Feng Ling. As for this guy, Feng Ling looked sideways at Feng Yu. She lowered her eyes helplessly and said, "I'll teach her when we get back. I've caused you trouble this time. Do you think you'll let it go just because you've caused me trouble?" Yishue stepped forward slowly and stood in front of Feng Ling. She looked at Feng Ling coldly and said, "You're just a little girl, yet you're so vicious. Won't you cause chaos in the world when you grow up?" Darking's sect, just you wait. Yishue's pitch-black eyes were filled with coldness as she looked at Feng Ling. She didn't say anything else. She raised her hand and took the antidote from Jingyu's hand. She supported Bai Jiu and turned to leave. Feng Ling heard Yishue's words. Her eyes flickered slightly, but the corners of her mouth slowly curled up. She sighed and said, It seems that the days from now on won't be boring. Let's go." Jingyu didn't say anything. She glanced at Feng Ling and then at Feng Yu. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "You really have to pay more attention to your good little sister. It would be bad if she was accidentally killed by someone." Jingyu turned around and caught up with Yishue. She pursed her lips and said, "She always talks about how easy it is to kill others. Then she must be prepared to be killed." Jingyu's words caused Feng Ling's expression to change. Beside her, Feng Yu saw Jingyu's narrowed golden-green eyes, and her body trembled violently. She immediately lowered her head in panic. What a terrifying gaze. Jingyu turned around indifferently and left with Yishue, Bai Jiu, and the others. Feng Ling and Feng Yu stood where they were and watched Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others leave. They swallowed slightly and lowered their heads. Xiao Chun and the others returned to Jinling. At this time, Jinling was fully prepared for war. The first thing Jingyu did when she got back was to take a bath and sleep. As for the war, there was no rush for it. Wei Ling had returned. Cebu definitely wouldn't be able to form an alliance as they wished. The alliance had come to an end. For the time being, there wouldn't be a war. Xiao Chun told this news to Fang Ziqing and the others. Only then did they feel much more at ease. In the next few days, the Alliance army seemed to come aggressively, but there was no movement. Finally, on the fifth day, news came. The Alliance army had split up. Cebu had fallen into internal strife. As expected, there wouldn't be a war. This aggressive war didn't happen. Jingyu and Xiaochen once again had some free time. However, this leisure didn't last long. Cebu announced that they were withdrawing from the war and bringing their troops back to their country. Jingyu originally thought that whether Cebu retreated or not, Tokyo and Nanli would continue to attack Jinling. However, she didn't expect that after Cebu retreated, Nanli and Tokyo would suddenly fall out. The two countries actually fell into internal strife. Chapter 12:11. This was a great opportunity for Jinling. How could Feng Zicheng let it go? The ninth imperial concubine. The ninth emperor's. Feng Zicheng excitedly rushed into Jingyu and Xiao Chen's courtyard. Jingyu and Xiao Chen were enjoying their time together, but when they heard Feng Zicheng's voice, they frowned. If you're here to tell me how the fight between Tokyo and Nanli is going, then you can leave now. Jingyu didn't give Feng Zicheng a second chance to speak. It's true. Feng Zicheng's face was slightly red as he looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chen. I've carefully investigated and analyzed the situation. The news this time is definitely true. The two countries are really fighting. Oh. Jingyu calmly supported her chin and looked at Feng Zicheng. It's true. Then what? What do you plan to do? Of course, we'll take advantage of the fact that they're fighting to gather our troops and catch them off guard. Feng Zicheng, are you confused? Jingyu stared at Feng Zicheng's head and said, I thought you were pretty smart. Why did you suddenly become so stupid? Feng Zicheng frowned and looked at Jingyu. He didn't understand Jingyu's meaning. Do you really think that our opponents are only Tokyo and Nanli? Jingyu said quietly. After Jingyu said this, she didn't intend to say anything else. If Feng Zicheng still didn't understand, then Jingyu would start to suspect that Feng Zicheng was a fake military advisor. Or did Feng Zicheng have a brain transplant? Clearly, Feng Zicheng instantly understood Jingyu's meaning and left without another word. In the following days, Jingyu and Xiao Chen spent most of their time together, except for the occasional training. The battle between Tokyo and Nanli was still going on. According to Xing Yi's report, he couldn't tell what was going on. This battle was too sudden, and Jingyu had to be on guard. During these days, Bai Jiu's injuries were completely healed under Xing Yi's care. The residual poison in his body was also removed. His originally white hair also recovered under Xing Yi's care. However, the white hair on the side of his ear was completely necrotic and couldn't grow anymore. Bai Jiu didn't care about it. This was also a lesson for him. One day, when Jingyu and Xiao Chen were talking in the courtyard, Xing Er came to report that Bai Jiu and Yi Shui had arrived. They had something important to discuss with Jingyu and Xiao Chen. Seeing Bai Jiu and Yi Shui arrive, Jingyu frowned slightly. What's the matter? Jingyu looked at Bai Jiu and Yi Shui and asked, Bai Jiu, how's your injury? It's fine now. Bai Jiu nodded at Jingyu. His eyes were filled with gratitude. That's good. Jingyu nodded slowly. There was a faint smile in her eyes. Jingyu, Bai Jiu just told me something about my family. After everyone exchanged a few pleasantries, Yi Shui slowly calmed down. She frowned at Jingyu and said, I just found out that there are survivors in my family. What? Jingyu's eyes widened in surprise after hearing this. There are survivors? What do you mean? Jingyu stared at Yi Shui and asked. Chapter 12:12. It's like this. Bai Jiu frowned and said, When I was escaping, I heard about the family of Sound Attack from the Darkine sect. It turns out that the family of Sound Attack is not extinct in this world. They just live in seclusion. But it seems that they are active again this time. Bai Jiu frowned slightly and said, I know too little information. I wanted to investigate it, but when I was about to do so, the family of Sound Attack disappeared again. What's going on? Jingyu frowned and looked at Bai Jiu, saying, Is it because the members of this family don't want to be found? I don't know. Bai Jiu lowered his head helplessly. Jingyu, I want to find them. Maybe the family of Sound Attack is a branch of my family. Yishui looked at Jingyu excitedly and said, maybe the second half of the method of Sound Attack is in the family. If I can get it, I will have a chance to study it. Okay. Jingyu nodded slowly and said, in that case, we need to investigate it carefully. Xiaochen? Xingyi, send someone to investigate. Xiaochen heard Jingyu's call and waved his hand at Xingyi. Xingyi nodded and left. What is the relationship between the family of Sound Attack and the different pupils? Jingyu was also curious about this. Jingyu didn't know if it was her illusion. After Bai Jiu and Yishui came and told Jingyu about the family of Sound Attack, Jingyu had a strong sense of uneasiness in her heart. In the past few days, this sense of uneasiness had become stronger and stronger. Jingyu frowned, and her eyes were filled with confusion. In the dark night, Jingyu and Xiaochen were sleeping soundly. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the room. Jingyu and Xiaochen opened their eyes at almost the same time. They instantly jumped up and jumped in a direction without any hesitation. It's me! Jingyu and Xiaochen both had bright daggers in their hands. The daggers were placed on someone's neck. Fengling? When Jingyu saw the person's face clearly, she immediately widened her eyes in confusion. She stared at Fengling's raised hand and did not dare to move. She slowly put away the dagger in her hand. What are you doing here? Xiaochen's face darkened when he saw Fengling. Phew. I just came to say goodbye. After Fengling saw the dagger move away, she raised her hand and touched her neck with lingering fear. She said, you two are too scary. My neck almost separated from my body. Serves you right. Who told you to barge in the middle of the night? Jingyu looked at Fengling speechlessly. She turned and walked to the side to put on her clothes. What are you doing here? Speak. Xiaochen looked at Fengling expressionlessly and said, I'm preparing to leave. Fengling looked deeply at Jingyu and said, the people from Yaojiang have been coming in and out of the Central Plains frequently. You be careful. Fengling's words had a hint of seriousness. Miaojiang? Xiaochen's expression flickered, and he lowered his head. Although I don't know the reason, it's not hard to confirm. The people from Yaojiang want to interfere with something. Fengling looked casually at Xiaochen and Jingyu and said, I'm just here to remind you. As for what it is, it's none of my business. Chapter 12-13. After Fengling finished speaking, she casually waved her hand and turned to leave. A cold voice rang out. Xiaochen, is it really worth it for you to go to this extent? Xiaochen stood where he was and looked in the direction that Fengling had left in. His face darkened bit by bit as he strode to the door and raised his hand to pull it open. He roared angrily, Xingyi! At Xiaochen's call, Xingyi's figure flitted across the air and appeared in front of Xiaochen. Is this how you protect this courtyard? Xiaochen didn't say anything else. His cold words made Xingyi lower his head abruptly. I have failed in my duty. Master, please punish me. Xingyi's eyes were full of seriousness. Scram! Xiaochen's face was cold. He turned and said, if there is a next time, he didn't finish his sentence. That thick anger and murderous intent made Xingyi tremble silently. It was all that damn Fengling's fault. She actually allowed that little devil Fengyu to pester him. He hadn't been reprimanded by his master for so many years. Today, he was reprimanded once again. Xingyi felt wronged. He lowered his head silently and continued to hide in the darkness to protect this courtyard. Xiaochen closed the door and returned to the room. Jingyu took off her clothes and crawled back under the blankets, leaning against Xiaochen's chest. Xiaochen, what did Fengling mean by her words just now? Jingyu closed her eyes slightly and asked in confusion. There's trouble. Xiaochen slowly frowned and sighed. He raised his arm and wrapped it around Jingyu's waist. He said, I'm not sure what's going on yet. Go to sleep. I'll get someone to investigate tomorrow. Oh, Jingyu responded. It was quite unpleasant to be disturbed in the middle of the night when she was sleeping soundly. The next morning, Xiaochen left with Xingyi and Xing'er. For the next few days, Xiaochen rarely returned. The situation between Tokyo and Nan Li was getting worse and worse. Even so, Fang Ziqing did not say anything about mobilizing troops. Although Tokyo and Nan Li were locked in battle, the Holy Family and Poison Sect had yet to make a move. Fang Ziqing wouldn't make a move until he received news from the Poison Sect and Holy Family. Finally, after 6 or 7 days, Tokyo and Nan Li's troops stopped. For some reason, Jingyu had a strange feeling when the two armies stopped. It was like they couldn't attract their prey and had to stop. Xiaochen also came back with the news after that, but even though he used all the information he had to investigate, there was very little information that could be found. It's that simple? There's no other news? Jingyu listened to Xiaochen's report. It couldn't be any simpler. There was no value in it at all. Jingyu's eyes widened as she frowned in confusion. Xiaochen nodded slowly. My information seems to have been deliberately blocked by someone. That's why it's like this. That's really strange. Jingyu frowned. After hearing Xiaochen's report, Jingyu felt even more uneasy. When she thought of the Holy Family and Poison Sect silence, Jingyu felt that something very bad was about to happen. Chapter 12:14. What's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Xiaochen stroked Jingyu's cheek and frowned when he saw the weariness in Jingyu's eyes. It's nothing. I haven't been sleeping well lately. Jingyu lowered her eyes and didn't say anything else. Jingyu's unease came and went. After a while, she began to think that she was overthinking things. While everyone was watching the Tokyo and Nan Li fight, the Holy Family and Poison Sect, who hadn't heard anything for a long time, finally found out something. It turned out that the Tokyo and Nan Li were fighting because of a disagreement between the Poison Sect and the Holy Family. Nan Li supported the Poison Sect, while the Tokyo respected the Holy Family. That's why the two sides started fighting. This internal conflict had undoubtedly given Jingyu's group a good opportunity. Fang Ziqing naturally understood the logic behind it. After repeatedly confirming the accuracy of this information, he immediately asked Jingyu to start preparing for a counterattack without hesitation. Jingyu was their trump card in this battle. Everyone thought that Jingyu's eyes were blind and that she no longer had the power of her otherworldly pupils. However, that wasn't the case. Not only had Jingyu's eyes recovered, but she'd even trained a squad of eagle riders. This was like adding wings to a tiger for Xiaochen's men. The curtains to the battle finally lifted. Fang Ziqing and Xiaochen's men were locked in a bitter struggle. Jingyu wasn't allowed to participate in the battle yet, so she naturally understood Fang Ziqing's plan. He wanted to create the illusion that Jingyu had completely lost her effectiveness in Jinling Town. All they had to do was wait for the Tokyo and Nan Li's men to deliver themselves to them. Once they let down their guard, that would be when Jingyu would make her move. Therefore, during this period of time, Jingyu could be said to be particularly idle. Miss Jingyu! But every time Jingyu was free, an idiot would come to harass Jingyu. Jingyu's face darkened as she watched the smitten Mu Yu dash over. She gave Xing'er a look, and Xing'er calmly stuck out his foot. Mu Yu stumbled and almost tripped on the ground. Xing'er, aren't you immature? You trip this young master every time. Mu Yu steadied himself and glared fiercely at Xing'er as he shouted. Since you know you will trip Prince Mu, why can't you avoid it every time? Xing'er silently said. Mu Yu's face instantly darkened, and the corner of his mouth twitched. I'm doing it on purpose. Mu Yu held his breath and said confidently, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Miss Jingyu. Mu Yu turned around and his expression changed. His smile was like a flower, and Jingyu covered her eyes. I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. Mu Yu, you're flirting with my Ye again. At this moment, an angry shout came from the door. When Mu Yu heard this figure, his expression changed. Who was this person? Shangguan Linglan. Speaking of which, why was Mu Yu so afraid of Shangguan Linglan? She was probably the only girl Mu Yu didn't dare to flirt with. What was the reason? Chapter 12:15. Oh my God! When Mu Yu heard Shangguan Linglan shout, he was instantly enraged. Without a second thought, he turned around and ran. Shangguan Linglan threw the long sword in her hand without hesitation. Kacha! The long sword pierced through Muyu's crotch and stabbed into the ground. Muyu lowered his head to look at his clothes that had been pierced through. His legs gave way, and he almost fell to his knees. Fuck! Jingyu only saw a flash of cold light in front of her eyes. When she turned around, she saw this scene. Her little heart was beating nonstop. Linglan was really too valiant. Help! Aw! Muyu almost instantly ran away. Ever since the last time Muyu did not care about the battlefield and said that he was bored, he sneaked back to tease Jingyu. This scene was caught red-handed by Shangguan Linglan. Without a second word, she grabbed Muyu and gave him a good beating. This time, it was terrible. Muyu had never seen such a valiant woman. Unfortunately, Shangguan Linglan was a military general. Her strength was called Ruthless. She almost beat Muyu up so badly that even his mother would not be able to recognize him. Ever since this incident, whenever Muyu did something wrong, Shangguan Linglan would torture him with her life. Jingyu saw with her own eyes that Muyu was running in front, while Shangguan Linglan played with her bow behind him. From then on, Muyu's life became completely dark because of Shangguan Linglan's appearance. Just like now, when Shangguan Linglan threw the long sword fiercely. Say, if the sword was accidentally thrown by just a little bit, Muyu's life as a prince would be gone. Jingyu silently swallowed her saliva and looked at Xing'er. Xing'er seemed to understand what Jingyu wanted to say. He silently lowered his head and pretended that he did not see Jingyu's gaze. However, speaking of Muyu, during this period of time, Jingyu had a whole new level of respect for this person for the first time. Jingyu was curious that Muyu, a prince, was a great contributor to Hellion Theo's fight for the throne. Therefore, she put on a cloak and went to the top of the city wall. For the first time, she saw Muyu commanding the army. He was the general who had changed into battle armor in order to massacre on the battlefield. He was the general who wielded the halberd in his hand. He was the general who protected the soldiers as they retreated from the enemy. He was the general who protected the northern shepherds. At that moment, Jingyu suddenly seemed to understand. When had the Mu Palace ever declined? Jingyu was a little lost in thought. The corners of her mouth curled up and a faint smile flashed in her eyes. Her ears were filled with Muyu's cries and shouts, as well as Shangguan Linglan's flustered and exasperated pursuit. For some reason, Jingyu heard such a clamor, but for some reason, it was very peaceful. The battle was getting closer and closer. Jingyu could not be idle. In the Roman forest, the soldiers' training team was once again formed. This time, the army of tigers and wolves was Jingyu's trump card. On the high city wall, Jingyu looked into the distance. It was finally here. All the hatred and enmity would be washed away in this battle. Xiao Chun and Hellion Theo led their troops to the Tokyo and Nan Li's camps. At this moment, a chaotic battle broke out. All the soldiers of the Northern Pastoral were mobilized. They attacked the Tokyo and Nan Li's camps without hesitation. This posture was like a counterattack from a dead end. Chapter 12:16. Your Highness! Your Highness! A joyful voice came from Nan Li and Tokyo's tent. What's the matter? Mu Qinghua asked as he sat on a chair. Everyone was sitting in the same tent. Ninth Imperial Uncle and the Northern Shepherd have mobilized all their troops and are heading toward our camp, the soldier said with joy in his eyes. What? They're really coming? Mu Qinghua's eyes lit up when he heard the soldier's words. He turned to look at everyone in the tent and said, Our plan succeeded. They're finally here? In the main seat of the tent, the person sitting in the high seat was dressed in black. His cold face flashed with a cold light. Wasn't it the sacred clan's high priest, Qin Bai? High priest, what should we do next? The third elder of the Holy Family, Jie Yi, and Qin Bai's guard, Ling Ji asked. There is no rush. Qin Bai's black eyes looked down as he said, The real show has only just begun. Qin Bai's words sent a chill down everyone's spine. They looked at Qin Bai with vigilance. Our old friend is coming soon, right? Qin Bai narrowed his eyes. He seemed to be looking forward to it. Nailin Yu, Yin Tian, and the others also narrowed their eyes when they heard Qin Bai's words. Yes, our old friend is coming soon. A faint voice sounded in the tent, and a strange atmosphere was brewing. The battle between Nanli and Tokyo and northern pastoral troops was getting more and more intense. Cebu didn't participate in the battle. Jingyu didn't appear in the battle. Finally, in one battle, Jingyu appeared. Her eyes were covered with a black cloth, and she only appeared for a moment before leaving. It seemed like she was unable to participate in the battle. In the dim light of night, at the Tokyo S camp, Qinbai stood in front of the tent with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the sky and frowned as if he didn't understand something. My lord, Lingji put the cloak in her hand on Qinbai's body. My lord just sent news that the woman with different pupils appeared on the battlefield today. Lingji stood respectfully behind Qinbai and said, Qinbai looked at Lingji and frowned. He looked at Lingji with a questioning gaze. She is indeed blind. Although her hearing is excellent, there is nothing to be afraid of. When Lingji said that, Qinbai frowned. He looked as if he was thinking about something very important. Qinbai looked as if he was thinking about something very important. My lord, the woman with different pupils is no longer a threat. Why does my lord still? Lingji paused. No, you're wrong. Qinbai's eyes lit up. He looked up at the sky and said, the danger of my holy family has not disappeared. As long as the blood-red light doesn't disappear, my holy family will not be at peace. After Lingji heard Qinbai's words, her expression changed slightly. We can't let the woman with different pupils live. Continue to prepare. Qinbai turned around and said. Lingji lowered her head and looked at Qinbai walking into the tent. She moved aside and lowered her head. Chapter 12:17. After Lingji left, Qinbai sat in the room without any movement. His brows were slightly furrowed, as if he was thinking about something difficult to explain. Why? Why is this happening? In front of Qinbai, a few copper coins had fallen on something that looked like an astrolabe. Qinbai's eyes were fixed on the astrolabe, and his expression was unreadable. Why is this happening? Qinbai's hands were tightly clenched, and his body was trembling slightly as he looked at the astrolabe in front of him. A dead end with no way to solve it. Why is this happening? Wasn't the other pupil destroyed? Why? Why is this happening? Qinbai's eyes were filled with madness. He slowly picked up a few copper coins and threw them down again. A strange thing happened. The copper coins fell in the same position as before. A dead end. It's still a dead end. Why? Why? Qinbai's face was filled with ferocity. When Lai Lian threw down the copper coins 3 times, they all landed in the same position. Qinbai completely collapsed. Dead end. Pooh. Finally, Qinbai couldn't take it anymore. He looked at the situation and suddenly felt the blood in his chest churning. There was a sweet taste in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Something must have gone wrong. It must be. Qinbai's face was ugly. He stared at the astrolabe and finally leaned back a little. He slowly frowned and murmured, where did this go wrong? Could it be? The other people must die? Qinbai's eyes slowly narrowed, and he stared at the astrolabe. His eyes were filled with seriousness, and his face was filled with all kinds of thoughts. Finally, he seemed to have made up his mind and slowly lowered his head. In that case, for the safety of the Holy Family, a murderous look flashed across Qinbai's eyes. Finally, he slowly lowered his eyes. Qinbai's voice rang out in this quiet tent. When Qinbai made this decision, the heavenly secrets seemed to have quietly changed. Everything was moving in an unpredictable direction. On the other side of the tent, a strange scene was happening. Nailin Yuan sat in the tent. Yun Tian and Yun Jing also sat there. The 3 of them sat together, but none of them spoke. Eldest young master, I've already arranged everything that needs to be arranged. The rest is up to you. Nailin Yu's red dress was like fire. Her exposed skin seemed to reveal a very attractive glow under the dim yellow light. Rest assured, 3rd Mississippi. Yin Tian's eyes slowly narrowed as his lips curled into a joyful smile. This time, Xiao Chun will definitely be yours. If anything goes wrong this time, I won't let you guys go, Nailin Yu said as she slowly stood up. Her charming eyes curved into a cold arc as she said, "It's about time. I'm just waiting for the last time to make my move." "Don't worry, I won't disappoint you," Yin Tian faintly replied. He lowered his eyes, hiding the strong disgust in his eyes. He looked at Nailin Yu's satisfied body and turned his head away in disgust. Behind Nailin Yu, there was a man wearing black clothes and an iron mask following behind Nailin Yu. On his exposed neck, one could faintly see a trace of a scratch. Chapter 12:18. Without a doubt, this person was the Shadow Guard who had been protecting Nailin Yu all this time, a man called Shadow. Ever since the last battle, when Shadow's face had been injured by a silver arrow, he had been wearing this mask. "Why are you still following me?" Scram. It was because Shadow's face had been injured that Nailin Yu hated him. Just as Nailin Yu was about to return to her tent, she found that Shadow was still following behind her, and her face was filled with disgust as she chased him away. "Yes." The Shadow bowed and stood where he was, bowing his head in response. He watched as Nailin Yu walked into the tent. He still stood where he was until he heard the ambiguous sounds coming from within the tent. Only then did the Shadow slowly turn around. His head was lowered, and the sword in his hand did not seem to have changed at all. However, under those lowered eyes, those eyes were filled with killing intent, and it was a terrifying sight. The battle was still raging on, and Xiao Chun, Helian Theo, Mu Yu, and the others were still fighting on the battlefield. At the same time, the Wanshou army that Jingyu had trained was also on full display. In this battle, Jingyu would not allow herself to be defeated. Has the information been confirmed? Within Jinling, Jingyu and Fong Zicheng were sitting in a room, currently studying the situation of the recent battles. It has been confirmed. Fong Zicheng slowly put down the stack of papers in his hands, rubbing his aching temples as he said, "I was too impatient before." The battle between Tokyo and Nanli was indeed just an illusion. Their intention is to test whether or not the 9th Imperial Concubine's eyes have truly disappeared. Fong Zicheng's face was filled with fatigue. These few days, Fong Zicheng had not had any time to rest, and had been constantly studying and analyzing. In the recent battles, 9th Imperial Concubine, after you went onto the battlefield, they have indeed confirmed their suspicions. As Fong Zicheng spoke up to this point, a faint smile appeared in his eyes as he said, "They have indeed increased the intensity of their attacks. If I'm not wrong, the enemy is about to launch an all-out attack on us." Fong Zicheng looked up at Jingyu and said, "This will be a crucial battle for us. The Holy Family and the Poison Sect will definitely be involved." Over the past few days, Qingge has developed many medicine sachets to counter the Poison Sect's poisons. Fong Zicheng pursed his lips as he looked at Jingyu. "They should be done soon." "Okay." Jingyu nodded happily. "Now all bets are on you, the 9th Imperial Concubine. How are the preparations for the Wanshou army coming along?" Fong Zicheng's eyes were filled with excitement as he stared fixedly at Jingyu. "It's perfect." Jingyu nodded firmly at Fong Zicheng. "If that's the case, I can rest assured." Fong Zicheng and Jingyu exchanged glances, their eyes filled with excitement. In Jinling town, the entire Jinling was filled with a sense of impending storm. The soldiers' armor and weapons were all being refurbished and repaired. Jin Hai was in charge of all these matters, and he had been extremely busy these past few days. All the soldiers were in a battle stance, preparing for a fatal blow. Was this the end of the battle? Chapter 12:19. The Holy Family. The Poison Sect. Are you all prepared to fight me? Everything was in order. Just when they were about to face off against Nan Li and the Tokyo, something unexpected happened. "What did you say?" Xiao Chun fainted. Jingyu never expected that Jingyu, who had just returned from the Roman forest, would hear such news and immediately rush into the room. Xiao Chun. In the room, Xiao Chun was sitting on the bed, frowning slightly. He raised his hand to rub between his eyebrows, looking sick. Jing Yu's eyes were full of anxiety. What's going on? Why did he suddenly faint? Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chun before her gaze finally landed on Qing Ge. We can't drag this out any longer. Qing Ge let out a deep sigh and withdrew his hand from Xiao Chun's wrist. His expression was slightly serious as he looked at Xiao Chun with a dignified look in his eyes. Xiao Chun turned his head away and didn't say anything. Ninth Brother's body has been like this ever since he came back from the poison sect. Qing Ge sighed deeply and said, I originally thought it was just an ordinary poison, but I never expected that the poison brother was afflicted with was anything but ordinary. Poison? What's going on? Jing Yu's heart tightened as she stared intently at Xiao Chun. It's a long story. Xiao Chun slowly lowered his head and said, Do you still remember how I was saved? The people who saved me were from the poison sect. Xiao Chun slowly lowered his eyes and said indifferently, Madam. Xing Yi sighed deeply and said, Although Master's life wasn't in danger at the time, the arrow almost pierced his heart. When Nailin Yu saved Master, she added another kind of medicine into Master's daily medicine. It's a slow-acting poison. Xing Yi slowly said, If Master doesn't drink that medicine, he won't be able to live. But if he drinks it, he'll become addicted. What? Jing Yu's eyes suddenly widened. It finally explained why Jing Yu always slept so soundly in the middle of the night. She didn't even notice that the grass would leave for a period of time in the middle of the night. Where was Xiao Chun when they left in the middle of the night? Jing Yu stared intently at Xiao Chun and said, Why? Why didn't you tell me? Jing Yu. Xiao Chun slowly turned his head away. His pitch-black eyes flashed with an icy light as he said, I didn't want you to see me in such a sorry state. Jing Yu felt a sharp pain in her heart when she heard Xiao Chun's words. Just how irresponsible was she to not know how much pain this man, who was with her every day, who slept with her every night, was enduring. I originally thought that the medicine would be able to control Ninth Brother's drug addiction, but I didn't expect that it would only treat the symptoms and not the root of the problem. It was under control for a while, but after that it worsened and he needed even more medicine to satisfy his drug addiction. If this continues, Ninth Brother will die. Qing Ji's expression turned abnormally ugly as he said, He fainted today because Ninth Brother has been trying to kick his drug addiction, but it's completely useless. Chapter 1220. Following Qing Ji's words, the room was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. You guys can leave. Xiao Chun was silent for a long time before he finally spat out these words. Qing Ge stood up and nodded at Jing Yu and Xiao Chun before he followed Xing Yi and the others out of the room. Only Jing Yu and Xiao Chun were left in the room. Jing Yu stood stiffly by the bed for a long time. Are you scared? Xiao Chun raised his head slightly and looked at Jing Yu as he asked. His pitch-black eyes shone faintly. Jing Yu remained standing in the same spot without saying a word. I'm scared. Jing Yu walked step by step toward Xiao Chun. She stood in front of Xiao Chun and stared at Xiao Chun with her golden-green eyes as she said, Xiao Chun, if not for today's incident, were you planning to never tell me about this? Were you planning to hide it forever? Jing Yu's eyes were glistening with tears. Xiao Chun, tell me, what am I in your eyes? Why didn't you tell me? Don't tell me. You want me to bear the pain of hearing the news of your death again? Xiao Chun, are you planning to abandon me again? The moment Jing Yu finished speaking, the tears in her eyes flowed uncontrollably. Xiao Chen's eyes widened, and he hurriedly stood up. When he saw Xiao Chen's tear-streaked face, his heart trembled violently. You are... Xiao Chen reached out to wipe away Jing Yu's tears. I just didn't want you to worry. Xiao Chen frowned slightly and looked at Jing Yu cautiously as he spoke. You'll only make me more worried if you do this. Jing Yu glared fiercely at Xiao Chun and said, You didn't tell me anything, and you didn't want to tell me anything. You just endured it all by yourself. What do you take me for? Xiao Chun, do you know that I want to be with you? No matter what it is, whether it's pain or happiness, I just want to be with you. Xiao Chun, don't leave me alone again. Jingyu raised her head and looked at Xiao Chun. The look in her eyes made Xiao Chun's heart tremble. He raised his hand and pulled Jingyu into his arms, holding her tightly in his arms. Only at this moment did he feel it so clearly. That burning emotion was so warm and moving. I'm sorry, Xiao Chun said deeply into Jingyu's ear. He was too selfish. He always thought that it would be fine if he didn't say anything. However, he didn't know that the consequences of not saying anything would be even more serious. Inside the room, Xiao Chun was comforting Jingyu. Outside the room, Qinggu and Xing Yu were talking worriedly. Xiao Chun explained everything clearly to Jingyu. In order to get Xiao Chun, Jingyu didn't hesitate to use poison to trap Xiao Chun. This was probably the first time Jingyu saw Xiao Chun's appearance when he was poisoned. His eyes were red as he rolled around on the bed. The way he gritted his teeth and growled made Jingyu unable to control herself and rush forward. All of you, get out. Jingyu looked sideways at Qinggu and the others and said, leave the medicine. When it's time, I'll let him take it. Qinggu hesitated for a moment. When he saw Jingyu's determined expression, he slowly nodded his head in agreement. Chapter 12:21. Jingyu blinked her eyes in a daze. She propped herself up and rubbed her sore body. Xiao Chun was too fucking ruthless. Jingyu propped herself up and tried to get off the bed, but she realized that her legs were too weak to walk. Just then, the door opened and Xiao Chun, dressed in black, walked in slowly. When he saw that Jingyu was awake, his eyes revealed a look of surprise. You're awake? Xiao Chun walked over quickly with a bowl of porridge in his hands. Xiao Chun, did you change my clothes for me? Jingyu blinked and looked at Xiao Chun as she asked. Yeah. Xiao Chun nodded calmly. Then, did you also help me take a shower? Jingyu's eyes widened again. She looked at Xiao Chun with a face full of horror. She suddenly felt unwell. Didn't this mean that Xiao Chun had seen her naked? Anyway, I've already seen it. What's there to be afraid of? Xiao Chun said calmly with a slight smile. Jingyu instantly jumped up and roared at Xiao Chun angrily. How is this the same? Xiao Chun turned to look at Jingyu. He didn't say anything, but he looked at Jingyu as if he was asking, what's the difference? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun and her mouth twitched. She turned her head away. I'm hungry. I want to eat meat. Jingyu said angrily. No, I only know how to make porridge. Xiao Chun replied calmly. Yeah, you made it. Jingyu looked at the porridge that Xiao Chun brought over and silently reached out to take it. She looked at Xiao Chun with a conflicted expression and said, you didn't poison it, did you? Xiao Chun's mouth twitched. It tastes pretty good, Jingyu said as she started drinking. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu and smiled. Even if it was poisoned, didn't you drink it willingly? Next time, don't do such silly things. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu as she drank the porridge. He lifted his hand to brush away Jingyu's hair and spoke calmly. His pitch-black eyes sparkled with tenderness. Jingyu turned to look at Xiao Chun and saw the tenderness in his eyes. She pursed her lips and said, Xiao Chun, I did it willingly. Xiao Chun's hand froze when he heard this. He paused for a moment, then slowly retracted his hand and said, hurry up and eat. The porridge is getting cold. Jingyu took a good rest after drinking the porridge. Then, she came to the main hall. Xiao Chun and Qinggu were sitting there. When Qinggu saw Jingyu, he immediately smiled at Jingyu. Ninth sister-in-law, you are really too amazing. Qinggu opened his mouth and said this sentence, which immediately made Jingyu stunned. Jingyu walked over to Xiao Chun and sat down beside him. She looked at Qinggu in confusion and asked, what? Hurry up and tell me how you made ninth brother restrain himself last night. I can't believe that the amount of medicine he took was so little. Qinggu looked at Jingyu in surprise and said, the few of us couldn't suppress ninth brother. How did you do it, ninth sister-in-law? Jingyu's expression changed when she heard Qing Ji's words. Looking at Qing Ji's curious expression, Jingyu's mouth twitched. What should she say? Chapter 1222. She couldn't even open her mouth. Should she tell Chinga last night she fucked? Jingyu silently turned her head and chose to ignore Qing's words. So awkward, so awkward. Chingu, didn't you say something happened to my body? Xiao Qin's nonchalant question changed Qing's mind and successfully changed the topic. Xing Er and Xing Yi, who were standing at the side, lowered their heads silently. Only Qinggu dared to ask such a question. Could it be that you didn't see the marks on Madame's exposed neck that would make one's imagination run wild? Even if one used their toes to think, one would know what exactly happened last night. Yes, ninth brother. Qinggu can't drag this out any longer. Qinggu turned to look at Xiao Chun and said, if you continue to suppress it like this, the situation will only worsen. It will be even more difficult to recover in the future. Is there any way? How can I detoxify it? Jingyu pursed her lips, and her expression turned ugly. She narrowed her eyes and stared at Qinggu. There is a way, but it's too troublesome. Qinggu sighed deeply and said, there is a way to detoxify it, but the herbs needed to detoxify it aren't here. The situation is so tense now. There's an antidote? Where is it? Jingyu's eyes lit up as she looked at Qinggu excitedly. It's in Cebu. The Liaofeng Plains is the largest plains in Cebu. There's a rare herb growing on the plains called the longtu grass. Qinggu pursed his lips and said, the longtu grass only grows on the Liaofeng Plains. Cebu. Jingyu frowned slightly. The dragon song grass is not too bad, but the other ingredient is troublesome. Qinggu sighed deeply and said, if we want to control the poison in ninth brother's body as soon as possible, we still need the most important ingredient. What? Jingyu raised her head and asked. Wuji. Qinggu said slowly, Wuji is a kind of fruit. It is said that it comes from the distant land of Miaojiang. This fruit is extremely precious. There are only 3 fruits on a tree, so it is called Wuji. The Miaojiang people treasure Wuji very much. Qinggu helplessly lowered his head and said, we definitely can't go to Miaojiang to get it now. The only Wuji I know is probably in the palace of Cebu. What? The palace of Cebu? Jingyu's eyes widened. Her mouth twitched and her face darkened. So, Qinggu spread his hands and said to Jingyu and the others, if we want to remove the poison in ninth brother's body, I'm afraid we have to go to Cebu. Everyone fell silent. If it was in the past, going to Cebu would not be a big deal. However, how could they go to Cebu at a time like this? What if something went wrong? Not to mention the urgency of the war, but Wei Ling already knew about Jingyu's abnormal pupils. It was possible that Wei Ling used his troops to force Jingyu to stay in Cebu. What should they do if that was the case? There were too many unknown factors in going to Cebu. It would be fine if they were just going to the plains, but they didn't expect to have to go to the palace as well. Chapter 1223. They'd practically be delivering themselves up to be slaughtered. We have to go, Jingyu said resolutely as she furrowed her brows. We can't delay Xiao Qin's treatment any longer. We have to go to the Cebu. Jingyu looked at everyone. As for the battle here, I'm afraid we'll have to hold it off for a while. We can't let news of Xiao Qin leak out. Ninth sister, it's no use. Qinggu slowly shook his head. Since the poison sect poisoned him, they must have predicted this. If we head to the Cebu now, we'll definitely be hunted down non-stop. Damn it. Jingyu's expression changed. Qinggu was right. Even if they headed to the Cebu now, the poison sect must have predicted it long ago. How could the journey be smooth? If that's really the case, then it's not a bad thing. Just as everyone thought it was a bad thing, Xiao Qin suddenly spoke up. If we attract the attention of the poison sect and the Holy Family, the battle here will definitely be less tense. That's not a bad thing. At least Jinling won't be in any danger for now. Xiao Qin turned to Jingyu and the others. Now that you mention it, you're right. Jingyu slowly nodded. Since that's the case, then let's call Helian Theo and Fong Ziqing over to discuss our next steps. We have to go to the Cebu. As for what happens after we get to the Cebu, we'll talk about it later. Jingyu furrowed her brows as her lips curved into a smile. We'll have to wait and see what Wei Ling plans to do next. Xiao Chun furrowed his brows. Would Wei Ling choose to repay the debt of saving his life in a Roman forest or to serve the country? No one knew. Later, Helian Theo and Fong Ziqing arrived. After listening to Jing Yu and Qing Ji's conversation, they began to discuss what to do next. The war between Tokyo and Nanli had been stopped, and all the preparations had been stopped. As long as Xiao Chun and Jing Yu didn't return, the battle couldn't start. During this period of time, the city gates couldn't be opened. They just needed to defend Jinling. All orders were to wait until Jing Yu and Xiao Chun returned. Xiao Chun's body couldn't be delayed any longer, so this was the only thing they could do. 3 days later, Xiao Chun and Jing Yu set off towards the Cebu with Qing Gu, Xing Yi, and Xing Er. It would take at least a month to get from Jinling to Cebu. Xiao Chun and Jing Yu would still need half a month to get there. Who knew if Jinling would be able to hold on? All right, Xiao Chun, don't we have the Humvee? Jing Yu's eyes lit up. She looked at Xiao Chun excitedly and said, if we take the Humvee, we can save a lot of time. I thought of that too. Xiao Chun nodded slowly when he heard Jing Yu's words. Riding the Humvee is good, but it's too big of a target. Plus, the Humvee needs to land to look for food, so it'll be easy to spot. Also, if we move too quickly, the Poison Sect and Holy Family will find out that we're riding the Humvee. Wouldn't that expose the Humvee's existence? It'll be very disadvantageous for us in the upcoming battle. Chapter 1224. Also, your eyes? Xiao Chun frowned as he looked at Jing Yu. You absolutely can't expose them on the way. I understand. Jing Yu slowly clenched her fists on her lap. Xiao Chen's words reminded Jing Yu that they had to be extremely low-key on the way to Cebu. Jing Yu absolutely couldn't expose her abnormal pupils. Otherwise, there would be huge trouble. It might even lead to the destruction of Jinling. Right now, Jing Yu was blind in the eyes of the Poison Sect and the Holy Family. She absolutely couldn't make a mistake at this moment. Jing Yu sighed deeply and lowered her head. She raised her hand to touch the corners of her eyes and slowly narrowed her eyes. Jing Yu, you should stay in Jinling, Xiao Chun said after some thought. He stared at Jing Yu. No. Jing Yu's eyes narrowed. She stared intently at Xiao Chun with her golden green eyes and said, I will cover my eyes. I definitely won't expose them. In Jinling, Helian Theo is here. Nothing will happen. But Xiao Chun pursed his lips. He was about to refuse when Qing Gu stopped him. Ninth brother, it might be a good thing for ninth sister-in-law to go. Qing Gu blinked and said, if ninth sister-in-law is here, isn't it a good thing that ninth brother can reduce the dosage of his medicine to this extent? Why don't you let ninth sister-in-law go? Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's faces darkened when they heard Qing Ji's words. Why did he suddenly bring this up? Ninth Emperors, I also think that the ninth imperial concubine should go. Fong Ziqing also spoke up. Actually, half of what the ninth imperial concubine said is feasible. What? Jing Yu blinked her eyes in confusion. Xiao Chun and the others all looked at Fong Ziqing. They didn't understand what Fong Ziqing meant and were waiting for him to explain. Fong Ziqing sat up straight and said, it's actually very simple. Just now, the ninth imperial concubine also said that you will be discovered if you take the Humvee. If it's just a short ride, it doesn't seem to be difficult. Fong Ziqing narrowed his eyes and said, I remember that there's a part of the road from Cebu where there's no one around, right? Starting from the west side of the Roman forest, there's an uninhabited area. Although it's not in the Roman forest, it's still not a problem to enter. If you ride a Humvee, you can save a lot of days of travel. What do you think? After Fong Ziqing finished speaking, he blinked and looked at Jing Yu and the others. That's right. How could I forget? Jing Yu's eyes lit up and she nodded in surprise. Also, if Jing Yu can follow along, it's not a bad thing. Fong Ziqing narrowed his eyes and said, the Poison Sect and the Holy Family will definitely follow you and get some information. If we can confirm that the ninth Imperial Concubine's other pupil ability has disappeared, then things will be much simpler. Jinling will also be much easier. Fang Zicheng revealed a faint smile as he looked at Jingyu and Xiaochun. If that's the case, why not? Xiaochun slowly lowered his eyes after hearing Fang Zicheng's words. All right, Xiaochun sighed deeply and finally agreed to Jingyu's request. Chapter 12:25. Okay, then let's pack up and set off early tomorrow morning. Qingge stood up and said, the sooner he detoxifies the poison, the better. The more addicted he becomes, the more damage it will cause to Ninth Brother's body. Okay. After Jingyu responded, she left with the others to pack their things. The next morning, everyone gathered at the outskirts of the Roman forest. Since they were going to ride the Humvees, they naturally had to go deep into the forest. Otherwise, they would be too big of a target. In the depths of the forest, Jingyu, Xiaochun, and the others stood on a rock on top of a high cliff. Oh my God! Qing Ji's entire body was trembling as he held onto Xing Yi's arm tightly. Xing Yi's face was completely black. He stared at Qing Ji's pale appearance and silently twitched the corner of his mouth. Why did we have to climb so high? Qing Ji's legs were trembling as he looked at Jingyu and Xiaochun in horror. Climb! Jingyu's mouth fiercely twitched as she said, Qinggu, you were completely carried up by Xing Yi. So scary. Qingge completely ignored Jingyu's words as he tightly held onto Xing Yi's arm and refused to let go. I give up. Jingyu's forehead was dripping with cold sweat as she completely ignored Qingge. She raised her head and looked at the sky. The Humvees swooping down were so strong that Qingge, who was already scared, became even more scared. Xing Yi looked at Qing Ji's appearance and silently took a step forward. He stood in front of Qingge and blocked the incomparably strong wind. Let's go. The three Humvees stopped in front of Jingyu and Xiaochun as the huge Humvees retracted their wings. Jingyu and Xiaochun rode one, Xing Yi and Qingge rode one, and Xing Er rode one each. Under Jingyu's command, they swooped down towards the sky. Such a strong impact made Qingge cry out in horror. Ah! Why did I fall? Qing Ji's screams echoed in the air. Don't make a fuss, Xing Yi quietly replied, then after some thought said, I won't let you fall. Eh! Qingge was stunned when he heard this. Then he gripped Xing Yi's hand even tighter. With tears streaming down his face, he said, you have to keep your promise. If I fall, I'll really become a meat patty. Ha ha ha. Jingyu looked at Qing Ji's frightened face and mischievously made Xiaochun crash towards Qingge and the others. Ah! Ninth sister, what are you doing? Don't come over. In the sky, Qing Ji's earth-shattering screams resounded. Xing Yi dodged left and right, but he couldn't escape Jingyu's pursuit. Ah! This is too fun. Jingyu sat behind Xiaochun and laughed like crazy. Looking at Qingge like this, it was really too amusing. A faint smile appeared in Xiaochun's eyes. Seeing how happy Jingyu was, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The fierce eagle soared through the sky without any obstacles, passing through this uninhabited area. What was supposed to be a 10-day journey was completed in 2 days on the Humvee. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the bustling area of Cebu. In a forest, Jingyu and the others jumped off the fierce eagle. Chapter 12:26. We'll reach Beihua City in half a day's walk. Xing Yi steadied himself and looked at Jingyu, Xiaochun, and the rest. Master, we'll have to walk the rest of the way by ourselves. Pack up. We'll reach Beihua before nightfall. Xiaochun responded. We can finally walk. Qingge had been living a life worse than death for the past 2 days. After hearing Xing Yi's words, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. He leaned against a tree trunk and sighed deeply. Beihua City was located in the southeast of Shiwu. It was undoubtedly a bustling city. When Jingyu entered Beihua City, she had already put on gauze to cover her eyes. Just like when she was in Luan City, the gauze covered her faintly discernible eyes. Others couldn't see Jingyu's eyes clearly, but Jingyu could see others. Probably because she hadn't seen such a bustling city for a long time and hadn't heard such a lively noise, it actually gave Jingyu a feeling that it was a lifetime ago. The noise was so loud that when Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others arrived in the city, the sky was already dark. After resting for the night, they bought horses and other necessities so that they could continue their journey the next day. Most of the necessities were bought by Xing Yi and Xing Er. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and Qing Ge waited at the inn. After eating dinner, they fell asleep. Beihua City was peaceful that night. The next morning, Xiao Chun, Jingyu, and the rest set out for the Liaofeng Great Plains. The Liaofeng Great Plains was north of Cebu, so Jingyu and Xiao Chen's group took a detour around Beihua. Their journey was relatively smooth, and they didn't encounter any major incidents. Thanks to Fierce Eagle, the Poison Sect and Holy Family hadn't caught up to Jingyu and Xiao Chen yet. However, this peace didn't last forever. After traveling for 3 days, Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest finally encountered the first wave of assassinations. Damn it. We were exposed so quickly. Outside the forest, Jingyu raised a hand to wipe the sweat off her forehead and frowned. I'm afraid we won't be able to enter the city tonight. Let's rest outside for a while. Xiao Chun looked around and said to the group, then led Jingyu and the rest into the forest. Jingyu's eyes were covered, so she could only let Xiao Chun lead her. After 3 days of travel, they were nearing the plains. The terrain here was very flat, and more people could be seen in the city. They were dueling or fighting on the streets. All Jingyu could hear were the sounds of shouting. The country of Cebu really lives up to its name of martial arts. Xiao Chun unhurriedly explained to Jingyu the various things in the city. Jingyu's face was full of curiosity as she slowly said, that's right. Of course, only in the land of Cebu can you truly see the strength of a powerful country. Xiao Chun narrowed his pitch-black eyes. But there's one thing to note. When things reach an extreme, they can only move in the opposite direction. Because the Cebu worships martial arts too much, there's been a lot of internal strife in the Cebu. They've established themselves as kings, and there's been countless incidents. Xiao Chun led the group down the street and said, if not for this, how could the Tokyo become the strongest country in the world? If the Cebu can balance things out, they can't be underestimated. Chapter 1227. Jingyu nodded in agreement when she heard that. What's that noise in front? Why is it so noisy? As Jingyu and the others walked, Jingyu suddenly heard the sound of joyous shouting. She looked at the noisy place through the veil and frowned slightly in confusion. It's probably a joust for a spouse? Xiao Chen glanced over and said calmly, a joust for a spouse? Jingyu's eyes widened in shock. In Cebu, this kind of thing is very popular. Xiao Chun pursed his lips and said, it's not the kind of joust for a spouse that we know. In Cebu, no matter what kind of man it is, when he marries a girl, he has to go through a joust with the girl's family. He has to win in order to marry her. No way. Jingyu was shocked when she heard this. She said in shock, what if I don't win? Then until you win, Xiao Chun replied calmly. Ninth sister-in-law, you don't know about this, right? Qing Ge said happily, in Cebu, if a man can't even marry his wife and can't win in a battle, then he's not a man. He'll be looked down upon. This? Jingyu frowned in confusion. The people in Cebu are all very strong. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and said, winning in a battle is just for show. Who would actually go all out? That's true. Hearing this, Jingyu nodded in agreement. It wasn't like they were really going to risk their lives. They were just making it sound good. Jingyu and Xiao Chen chatted and laughed as they walked forward. As they walked, Jingyu's ears twitched. There was a sudden sound in the air. Jingyu turned to look, and her pupils shrank. This is... Jingyu raised her voice. She didn't even see what it was. She only felt a gust of wind stop in front of Jingyu. In front of Jingyu, Xiaoqin caught a red ball in his hand. If Xiaoqin hadn't caught it, the ball would have smashed into Jingyu's face. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Xiaoqin slowly lowered his hand and asked Jingyu. I'm fine. What is this? Jingyu shook her head and frowned. She stared at the red ball in Xiaoqin's hand and asked. This is... Xiaoqin heard Jingyu's question. He glanced at the ball in his hand and threw it away expressionlessly. The red ball landed in the hands of a beggar lying on the side of the road. Where's the embroidered ball? Where's the embroidered ball? Xiaoqin didn't answer Jingyu's question, but Jingyu already understood from the mouths of these people. Aya, this young master, you were the one who caught the embroidered ball. How could you throw it away? The group of people chasing after them all looked like young masters. When Xiaoqin threw the embroidered ball away, it happened to be seen by one of the people who ran over first. Immediately, they started shouting, attracting the attention of the people behind them. They pointed at Xiaoqin and his group and whispered among themselves. Xiaoqin remained silent and didn't express any opinions. Who caught the embroidered ball from my Feng family? Just as the crowd was talking, the crowd slowly parted to form a path. A muscular man walked out. Behind the muscular man was a petite woman who looked very weak. Chapter 1228. Lord Feng. It was this young master in black who caught it. One of the people who knew the whole story saw the man who claimed to be from the Feng family and quickly stepped aside to make way for him. He pointed at Xiaoqin and said, The burly man's eyes widened as he squinted at Xiaoqin and asked, You were the one who caught the embroidered balls? The woman standing beside the burly man was stunned the moment she saw Xiaoqin. Her eyes were filled with amazement, as if she wanted to stick her eyes on Xiaoqin. When Jingyu saw this, she looked at the group of people and crossed her arms in amusement. She stood to the side without saying a word. No. Xiaoqin's expression didn't change as he replied. It was him. As Xiaoqin spoke, he suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the beggar who was holding the embroidered ball, not knowing what to do. When the beggar saw that everyone was looking at him, he swallowed silently, not knowing what was going on. How dare you? The burly man followed Xiaoqin's gaze and saw a beggar in tattered clothes holding the embroidered ball. His face immediately darkened as he glared at Xiaoqin and shouted, How dare you throw the embroidered ball away? Xiaoqin looked at the burly man coldly and turned to leave without saying a word. Stop! The burly man shouted. Father! At this moment, a weak voice was heard and stopped the burly man's actions. She walked toward Xiaoqin with a red face and looked at Xiaoqin shyly and embarrassedly. Young master, did you pick up the embroidered ball? Xiaoqin looked at the person who was approaching him coldly and frowned as he slowly took a step back. Don't you understand human language? Xiaoqin grabbed Jingyu's hand and said, let's go. Wait! When the woman saw that Xiaoqin was about to leave, she became anxious and stood in front of Xiaoqin. Only then did her eyes fall on Jingyu. Her eyes were covered by a veil that covered Jingyu's face, and her eyes couldn't be seen clearly. There must be something shameful about her, so she used the veil to cover it. With this thought, the woman looked at Jingyu with disdain. Young master, you snatched my embroidered ball, so you are my husband? The woman pursed her lips and said shyly. Her words made Jingyu's expression become extremely interesting. Originally, Jingyu wanted to watch the show and see what this woman wanted. Hey woman, is there something wrong with you? Jingyu took Xiaoqin's hand and took a step back. She stood up and crossed her arms as she looked at the woman in white, who thought she was Xiaolongnu. Her eyes were full of disdain. Can't you see that your embroidered ball is in that person's hand? Why are you staring at someone else's husband? Is there something wrong with your head? Jingyu said arrogantly, causing the woman and the group of people's faces to change instantly. What did you say? The woman looked at Jingyu in shock. Chapter 12:29. What a retard. Let's go. Jingyu grabbed Xiao Qin's hand and was about to leave when the woman was provoked by Jingyu. She suddenly stepped forward and said, "Men, stop them. I want to see what kind of ability you have to escape from the hands of our Feng family." The woman's gentle appearance disappeared, and her eyes were filled with viciousness. Jingyu and the others stopped in their tracks. They watched as the woman appeared out of nowhere and surrounded Jingyu, Xiao Qin, and the others. "Today, I want him to marry me." The woman looked at Jingyu and Xiao Qin, who were surrounded. Her eyes were filled with arrogance as she walked in front of Jingyu and Xiao Qin. She stared at Xiao Qin as she spoke. Only such a handsome man was worthy of her. When the people around them saw this scene, they immediately surrounded them and pointed at them. Jingyu didn't know why, but she found this scene funny. She didn't expect that there were so many idiots in this world. She could meet idiots wherever she went. Interrogation Officer 1. Jingyu tilted her head slightly and called out, "Kill them all? Leaving them alive will dirty my eyes." Jingyu said indifferently. She smiled at Xiao Qin and said, "It seems like we can't stay here today. It's okay. Let's go." Xiao Qin raised his hand and patted Jingyu's head, his eyes full of tenderness. Jingyu and Xiao Qin completely ignored the Feng family and turned to walk away. At this moment, Jingyu's indifferent voice sounded again. "This is my first time at Cebu. Consider it a gift for Wei Ling if you think it's too much trouble. Second Xing, kill all the people from the Feng family." After Jingyu said this, she followed Xiao Qin. Qing Ji's face was filled with shock as he watched Xiao Qin and Jingyu leave. He looked at Xing Yi and Xing Er, who were left behind, and swallowed his saliva silently. "That just teach them a lesson," Qing Gu said quietly. Interrogation Officer 1 glanced at Qing Gu expressionlessly, the long sword in his hand suddenly unsheathed. Interrogation Unit 1 and Interrogation Unit 2 slowly sheathed their long swords, then turned and strode forward. Behind them were bloodstains and corpses lying on the ground. The onlookers on the street fled in panic at this moment. Only one person was left on the street after the clamorous screams. The arrogant girl was now sitting on the ground in a daze. Her body was stiff. After Xing Yi and Xing Er left, she lowered her head slightly. She looked at her trembling hands that were covered in blood. She didn't expect these people to be so ruthless. They killed her just like that. After Jingyu and Xiao Qin killed her, they didn't stop. They turned around and rode out of the city gates. How arrogant was it to kill someone on the street? However, the price they had to pay for their arrogance was quite high. Jingyu and Xiao Qin had become wanted criminals by the Cebu. I regret it. In the forest, Jingyu took off her veil. She glared at Xiao Qin angrily and said, "Why didn't you stop me when I wanted to kill someone?" Chapter 12:30. Look at the situation now. We can't enter the city at all. Jingyu glared at Xiao Qin bitterly. Xiao Qin sighed deeply when he heard Jingyu's complaint. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he turned his head away, not wanting to speak. "Ninth sister-in-law, you're blaming ninth brother." Qinggu was even more resentful. Originally, they could have entered the city and rested in the inn. Now, the area was filled with their portraits and wanted posters. As a result, they could only spend the night in the forest. It was simply unbearable. I was just angry," Jingyu said aggrievedly. "What kind of woman is this? She actually wanted to steal my man. I should have killed her." Qinggu looked at Jingyu's appearance and was speechless. His heart was filled with resentment. He looked at Xiao Qin and said, "Ninth brother, what should we do now? Let's think of a way to enter the city." Xiao Qin stood up and looked at the city wall in the distance. He said, "This is the only way to the Liaofeng Great Plains. We must go in." "Okay, Qinggu, do you have a way?" Jingyu responded and turned to Qinggu. "We can only disguise ourselves a little." Qinggu slowly sat up and looked at Jingyu and Xiao Qin. The light in his eyes made Jingyu and the others feel a chill down their backs. They trembled violently and stared at Qingge. When Xiao Chun and Jingyu arrived at the gate of Xingfeng City, the five of them had changed their appearances. Xiao Chen's originally handsome face was now a burly man with a full beard. Jingyu's originally beautiful face was also disguised as an old woman. Qingge, on the other hand, had become a middle-aged man. It was normal for second interrogation officer to be dressed like a country bumpkin, but what made people laugh the most was, "Ha ha ha, I can't take it anymore. Ha ha." Jingyu laughed until tears came out of her eyes. Looking at Xing Yi's appearance, she almost had cramps. Why did I disguise myself as a woman? Right now, Interrogation Officer 1 was dressed in female clothing. The most terrifying thing was his muscles, which were about to burst the small female clothing. His face was contorted, and the way he looked at Qingge was as if he wanted to swallow him whole. There's no other way. This is the most suitable way. Qingge looked at Interrogation Officer 1's face that had completely darkened. He tried his best to hold back the smile on his face, and said quietly, biting his lips tightly to prevent himself from laughing out loud. Jingyu looked at Xing Yi's smoky face. His originally stiff face was covered with a layer of white powder. The most obvious thing was his fiery red lips. Jingyu trembled and pointed at Xing Yi for half an hour. Her tears kept flowing. Ha ha ha! I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Don't let me see you. Jingyu said weakly as she leaned on Xiao Chun. She had no more strength left. Okay, we're all dressed up. Let's go. Qingge looked at everyone. He was afraid that if they stayed any longer, Xing Yi would kill them. After saying that, he led everyone towards the city gate. Xing Yi, handkerchief, handkerchief. Qingge stood beside Xing Yi and reminded Xing Yi of his handkerchief. Xing Yi's body stiffened and twisted into a strange angle. Then he held a square handkerchief in his hand and covered half of his face. Chapter 1231. She pretended to be very shy, but because of this strength, the appearance that she revealed was really amusing. Jingyu followed behind Xing Yi. When she saw Xing Yi and Qingge, her body trembled uncontrollably. Fortunately, her head was lowered, her body was bent, and her face was covered with a piece of cloth. Her expression couldn't be seen clearly, but Jingyu was still trying to stifle her laughter. Stop! What are you doing in the city? The soldier went forward to investigate. When he saw Jingyu and Xiao Chun, he frowned and looked at Qingge and Xing Yi. He wanted to go forward and ask Xing Yi to take the handkerchief, but he didn't expect Xing Yi to take it himself. When he saw Xing Yi take the handkerchief, the soldier was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. "Oh, big brother, I'm sorry. My little sister is like this," Qingge said with a shy smile when he saw the soldier's face turn pale. "Little sister?" The soldier looked at Interrogation Officer 1, and his expression instantly turned extremely ugly. He waved his hand and said, "Leave, leave." After that, he stopped Xiao Chun and Jingyu. However, Jingyu played the role of a deaf and blind person, while Xiao Chun played the role of a mute. The soldier didn't get anything out of him after asking for a long time. The people behind them got impatient, and the soldier let Jingyu and Xiao Chun in. As for Xing Yi, he played the role of a fool. He waited for Jingyu and Xiao Chun to go in for a while before Xing Yi appeared. The investigation outside the city didn't cause much of a disturbance. Xiao Chun and Jingyu entered the city safely. In order not to attract attention, they entered the same inn at different times after entering the city. "Qingge, your makeup skills are not bad." Jingyu touched her reddened face and glared at Qingge. "Can you use better medicine next time? Look at how much damage you've done to my face." "Ninth sister, I helped you do your makeup, and you're looking down on me?" Qingge couldn't take it anymore. "Huh, I'm complimenting you." Jingyu immediately grabbed Qing Ji's hand and said with a smile. She still needed Qing Ji's help in the following matters. If she didn't do her best to please him, she would be in trouble. What if she ended up like Xing Yi when she did her makeup? By the way, where's Xing Yi? Jingyu frowned and looked into the room in confusion. Oh, he's washing his face. Chingu replied calmly. He's already washed his face more than 10 times. It's just a little rouge. Is there a need to be so scary? Why don't you do it next time? Just as Chingu finished speaking, an extremely cold voice rang out. Interrogation Officer 1 had appeared behind Chingu at some point in time. His black eyes were filled with rage as he looked at Chingu and spoke. This? Chingu was shocked when he heard Xing Yi's voice. He quickly jumped over to Jingyu. I'm just kidding. Chingu gulped and said, This is a mask. Put it on. Even though we're in the city, we can't be discovered. Xing Yi snorted and put on the mask in Xing Ji's hand. Ninth brother and ninth sister are too eye-catching. It's not convenient for you to go out. Xing Yi, Xing Er, and I will go out to buy some things. We'll leave the city tomorrow morning and can't waste too much time here, Chingu said slowly as he looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun. Chapter 1232. Okay, Jingyu naturally had no objections. She nodded slightly at Chingu and agreed to Xing Ji's words. After that, Chingu and Xing Yi went out. Jingyu and Xiao Chun took a bath in the room and prepared to rest while waiting for Chingu to return. However, they didn't expect that when night fell, Chingu and Xing Yi still hadn't returned. Jingyu was a little worried. Did something happen? Just as Jingyu was thinking about whether to go out and take a look, Chingu finally returned. However, he didn't come back fully. What's going on? Where's Xing Yi? Jingyu looked at Chingu and Xing Er standing in front of her and asked, Master, we probably have to go and ransom him. Xing Er looked at Xiao Chun with a conflicted expression and slowly said, What? Ransom him? Jingyu was getting more and more confused. However, when Xiao Chun heard Xing Er's words, his expression suddenly became very interesting. The corner of his mouth twitched violently, and he slowly narrowed his eyes. What's going on? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun, who was slowly rubbing his eyebrows, and suddenly became even more curious. What's going on? Don't say anything. Have you bought everything? Xiao Chun sighed deeply and asked. I bought them all? Second Xing nodded slowly. Hey, you guys haven't told me what's going on yet. Jingyu widened her eyes with a conflicted expression. Finally, her gaze landed on Chingu. Chingu looked at Jingyu with a confused expression and said, I also want to know what's going on. Where's Xing Yi? Jingyu stared at Chingu and asked. He was taken away by a woman. Chingu blinked his eyes and replied with a serious expression. What the hell? Jingyu looked at Chingu in shock and asked. Chingu shook his head silently. Xiao Chun and Xing Er had already started changing their clothes. They even put on masks and swords. This is? Jingyu stared at Xiao Chun. Change your clothes and pack your things. We're leaving tonight. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu calmly and said, Why? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun's actions, and her curiosity was piqued. She stared at Xiao Chun and asked, If we don't leave tonight, we won't be able to leave. Xiao Chun raised his hand and touched Jingyu's cheek. He said calmly, Good girl. Jingyu followed Xiao Chun in a daze. She didn't understand what was going on and was taken away without saying a word. Chingu and Jingyu were completely in the dark. Let's go outside the city. Xing Er sent an emergency signal to Xing Yi. Xiao Chun said to Xing Er as they walked towards the city gate. Yes. Xing Er nodded solemnly. Then, under Jingyu's confused gaze, he sent out the signal. It seemed like Xiao Chun said that this was an extremely urgent matter before sending out the signal. And now, Xiao Chun sent it out so easily. Let's go. After Xiao Chun saw the signal, he waved the horsewhip in his hand and headed towards the city gate. At this moment, on another street near the city gate, a dark figure was running for his life. Master! When the figure got closer, Jingyu finally saw who it was. Wasn't it the missing Xing Yi? Chapter 1233. Don't say anything, let's go. Xiao Chun didn't say anything and turned around to run out of the city. Jingyu was dragged along as if something terrifying was chasing after them, but Jingyu didn't know what it was. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others ran for a long distance and rushed into the forest to hide. Only then did they have time to catch their breath. Jingyu finally couldn't take it anymore and glared fiercely at Xiao Chun under the huge moonlight. What the hell is going on? Jingyu's eyes wandered between Xing Yi and Xiao Chun as she glared fiercely at Xiao Chun. It's a long story. Xiao Chun's expression changed for a moment. He pursed his lips tightly and said, "Let's talk about it next time." "No, I have to tell you now." Jingyu glared at Xiao Chun. It was the first time she saw Xiao Chun turn his head away guiltily. Alarm bells went off in her heart. She glared fiercely at Xiao Chun and said, "You're really something, Xiao Chun. You must have a lover, right?" Xiao Chun heard Jingyu's words and frowned. "Madam, you've wronged master." Xing Yi stood at the side and frowned. After saying this, he frowned as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only swallow silently and keep his mouth shut. "Okay, you guys won't say anything." Jingyu narrowed her eyes and glared at Xiao Chun and Xing Yi. She said, "I'll go back by myself." "Jingyu!" Xiao Chun reached out and grabbed Jingyu's hand. He frowned and said, "It's not me, it's Xing Yi." What's wrong with Xing Yi?" Jingyu blinked and asked. "Lover," Xiao Chun said quietly. "Master." Xing Yi's face darkened when he heard Xiao Chun's words. Xing Er heard this and laughed unloyally. Xing Yi immediately received a cold glare from Xing Er. Okay. Xing Er quickly raised his hand, and a rare smile appeared in his eyes. "Madam, do you still remember that I once told you that Interrogation Officer 1 was originally from the pugilistic world?" Interrogation Officer 1 arched his brows and asked Jingyu. "I remember." Jingyu thought for a moment and nodded. "That woman is the love debt that Interrogation Officer 1 incurred when he was in the martial arts world." Xing Er replied quietly. Xing Yi's face turned red, and he turned away without saying anything. Xiao Chun also closed his eyes helplessly and didn't intend to say anything. Xing Yi's lover debt. Jingyu's eyes lit up instantly. She moved closer to Interrogation Officer 1 in a gossipy manner and said, Tell me what happened. What kind of woman scared our Xing Yi to this extent?" "Madam." Xing Yi looked at Jingyu and lowered his head helplessly. He stared at Jingyu and sighed deeply. It was a disaster caused by his ignorance. After that, no matter how Jingyu asked, Interrogation Officer 1 kept his mouth shut. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu's never-ending manner and raised his hand to take her hand, saying, "It's getting late. We still have to travel tomorrow. Rest well." Jingyu was pulled into Xiao Chun's arms. Jingyu and Xiao Chun rested in the forest for the rest of the night. Then, they set off early the next morning. After passing through this city, they entered the Liaofeng Great Plains. It was a relaxing journey. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.